Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Love and Real Estate. I am your girl, Danielle, your local realtor, and I'm here with my co-host,
D Money.
my husband, there. And so this part of the podcast, we wanted to just kind of share more about the love aspect. And I think you had an article that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, so I found something on a site called divorce.com. There's actually a site called that's dedicated to divorces. But it's an interesting article though. It said this is the 13 most common reasons for divorce. So what I wanted to do, I know you haven't seen this article yet. I want to go through each one of these 13 reasons.
Okay.
And I want to get your opinion on it.
Okay.
And then I also want to I want you to tell me if it's something that we really need to be on the lookout for, right? I know we've been married for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want you to see if this is the reason, if this is something that we should be on the lookout for, or something that we should be concerned about.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
All righty.
All right, so the first one, too much conflict, incessant arguing.
I can see that being a cause for divorce. I guess it would depend on what your definition of excessive arguing is or conflict.
I don't think we do that. We do argue, but we don't argue excessively,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And that can be very annoying.
Yeah.
And you don't want to come in from work and
Just start arguing.
start arguing, man. That's
Yeah.
not the kind of life to lead. Now, I do know there are some couples that argue every day. I mean, I have some people in my family, they just go back and forth arguing. I mean, that's kind of big. It makes up the foundation of their relationship, actually. I think if they weren't arguing, they probably wouldn't be communicating. But between me and you, no, I wouldn't enjoy that at all.
Okay.
Yeah. So is that something we should be worried about?
No.
All right. Number 2 is lack of commitment. And before you say anything right now, I know on my end, I have full commitment. So this is not my problem.
Okay. I got full commitment. I'm in it. I'm in it to win it. So I don't think it's something that, is a red flag or a worry for us. Maybe for others out there, if you're not, I guess fully embedded into the relationship, we go out and do things, when we can and have babysitters with the kids. So I think
well, it's not even that though. You got to be invested emotionally, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not, you really should tell the other person it's time, just for your sake and the other person's sake, to dismantle the relationship.
Yeah.
Because if you're not in it with a full commitment, if you're not anything in life with a full commitment, you're not going to succeed at it.
That's true.
Right?
That's
your
true.
heart's not in it.
Yeah. Okay.
Unfortunately, I believe that many people actually go through the same thing in life. And it's kind of sad for whatever reason. It just, the commitment kind of breaks down.
Yeah.
So, all right. So number 3, infidelity and extramarital affairs.
Definitely
now I'm a little, I don't know. I'm a little scared though, because I was thinking that you may say something.
Definitely not us. So not one of our red flag problems, but that's definitely a deal breaker for divorce.
Let me ask you a question though. Is it the infidelity or is the fact that you know about the infidelity? Which one is it?
Ooh, I think it would be the infidelity because, you are, at least for me, I'm, investing my heart, opening up myself to somebody, and then that person cheats on me, they're now, giving their space and love to somebody else. Even if not even if it's for love, like they just, you know what I mean? They've
just physically
given their self to somebody else. It's not.
But if it's physically though, if it's not emotionally, just physically, is it really cheating at that moment? It is?
Yes.
Okay.
Physically, emotionally.
Just giving yourself any other way. It's okay. It's cheating.
And my thing is, if you're going to cheat, then you've probably 1 and 2. There's arguing and stuff. Mm-hmm. There's that lack of commitment. So at this point, you might as well just go ahead and divorce.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. It goes back to commitment. Say you in a fully committed relationship, and your spouse has an extramarital affair, but they apologize for it. They're very resentful for it. And so you have so many years invested into this marriage, right?
Did you go to like therapy and stuff?
Yeah. What would you do? Will you automatically say this is divorce, or?
It depends. For me, it's a deal breaker. That's just me.
So how many years is a deal
it's a
breaker?
deal
If you over 10 years, is it a deal breaker?
It's a deal breaker.
What about over 20?
It's a deal breaker.
But you got so much invested in them, though. You got finances that's tied together. You got kids.
I watch a lot of you know me. I watch a lot of my housewives and reality show, which could make for a great podcast one day for us.
But there's plenty of them out there.
Yes, but one of the cast members on the show, she holds by that. You cheat, it's a deal breaker for her. I feel the same way, even with the time. Now, I do know there's couples out there and people that, you know, there may have been some infidelity or something. They work through it. They go to counseling and they're, you know, trying to, you know, they're fully committed. They're doing the work to stay married. Yeah. So it may work for people. I'm not knocking it. For me, it's a deal breaker.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Let's go deep for a moment, right? Let's go deep. It's a deal breaker, of course, if I have a physical affair or you have a physical affair, right? But what if it's just emotional, right? What if it's
just even worse?
What if I'm just going on? Yeah, it is kind of worse. Not so what if I'm just going on dates with this person? I just kind of enjoy spending time with them.
That's even worse.
But we haven't did the.
Yeah, but you guys, that's kind of like us. If you think about it, when we started dating, we formed a friendship, a bond, and we carried that through to where we've, you know, kind of got over what they say, that 7-year hump of a marriage, because at the end of the day, we forged this friendship. If you're dating somebody and it's not physical, it's emotional, because they're giving you something you're missing in your marriage. To me, that seems like it's even worse, because now you're building a better connection and bridge.
Well, that's interesting, though, because you can be friends in a marriage but not be physically attracted to each other anymore, right? Yeah. And I want to give you the example of Bill and Hillary Clinton, right? You could tell they have a deep friendship. They do. They've been together for a long period of time. Hillary helped Bill's career to become president, and Bill helped Hillary's career to become senator and almost becoming president, right? But I mean, I read plenty of articles that they don't really have, and this is speculation, right? Nobody knows for sure except them. But they don't really have physical interaction with each other. But it's still a marriage.
Yeah, but it may work for them.
It may work. That's what I'm saying. So I guess it's different strokes for different folks, right?
Yeah. For me, it's a deal breaker, though.
Okay, deal breaker. I got you. It's a deal breaker for me, too. But we
don't have that problem.
Yeah, we don't have that problem. At least I hope we don't have that problem. I'm looking at you with a side eye.
We don't have that problem.
Okay. You know, as a realtor, you spend a lot of time outside of the house, a lot of hours on the weekend.
We don't have that problem.
Who are you spending time with?
We don't have that problem.
Yeah. How do I know you're working, right? Okay. So, number 4, lack of emotional or physical intimacy.
I don't know if that's ground for divorce.
Or not the physical part. I definitely want to say that the emotional part is different, though.
Emotional could be different. Yeah. But I don't think it's ground for divorce when it comes to the intimacy, because, you know, people go through things. I know, like, you know, you can go through life with kids, you know, and different things with pregnancy and, you know, kind of other stuff, to where it takes you out of that intimacy mode. Physical appearance and, you know, body can take you out of that, you know, intimacy mode of feeling sexy. Yeah. And then you kind of got to work your way back. But it shouldn't, you know, you work through that, you know, however you feel in the space. And then you kind of maybe get back to that person.
Well, I definitely agree about the physical, right? We all going to get older. Our bodies are going to change. Yeah. So the person that you marry is probably not going to be the same person, at least physically, the way their appearance is going to be the same person 40 years from now, right? Yeah. But you're still going to be married to them. Right. The thing that really gets me, don't get me wrong, physical is very important, and I like getting physical with you. We have 3 kids, so that's an indication that we definitely get physical. But I will say, though, it's the emotional part. If I come home and I have a bad day at work, or I just want to talk about work in general, talk about life, things that's going on with me, I have to count on you being there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, that's a very big deal. If we get to the point where I can't talk to you, or I don't feel love emotionally, then it's just not going to work out. I'm sorry, everybody. You probably hear our kids in the back. That's our youngest daughter crying. And we started this podcast. We're not really good at editing right now. So we're just going to continue this and just going to continue talking. Something's going on with our daughter. but I'm just going to move to the next one. So number 5 is communication problems between partners. And Danielle, I think this actually goes back to the intimacy part, right? Because intimacy, emotional intimacy, and communication are akin to each other, right? We have to be able to communicate. Just it's like that in a friendship outside of a marriage, right? You got to be able to communicate with somebody to be effective. I mean, shit. Even with your job, the relationship you have with your boss is built on communication. The relationship you have with your team members is built on communication. So you definitely need strong communication in the marriage. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I think the communication is probably like the foundation of a healthy marriage. Being able to, I mean, look at us. We started a podcast and, communicating and sharing it now, our love and our passion for things with the world. So I definitely think communication would be key. If you don't have that, I mean, if you're not communicating with your significant other, I mean, again, that can kind of lead to divorce because then it would trickle into other things, resentment. You're arguing all the time. So
Yeah.
I think communication is another.
A lot of times too, you don't understand my intentions unless I fully communicate.
Yeah.
Only because we've been together a long time doesn't mean that you really understand exactly where I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Or the things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right. For example, as a realtor, you work a lot of hours. My wife has worked a ton of hours. Sometimes she's gone for a lot, especially on the weekends. I'm here with the kids. She's out. But I would like to know exactly what she's doing and the client that she's with. And it also is for a safety issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also for just kind of relieving me of some stress that you're not doing number 4, right? As far as having intimacy with somebody else, right?
Or abducted.
Yeah, or abducted. That might go back to the safety issue, right? Yeah, it goes back to the safety issue. Okay, let's kind of go through this a little bit more, so a little bit quicker. So we got number 6, domestic violence, abuse by partner or parent. We could skip that all the way.
Yeah.
I'm not raised to hit a woman. I would never in my life hit a woman.
Deal breaker.
Especially never hit the woman that I'm loving. That's something that's totally whack. I would never hang with a person that I know is physically abusing their significant other. That's terrible.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And any man that hits a woman should get his ass beat.
Yeah.
But then again, on the converse though, a woman should not be hitting a man either.
I agree with that too.
Yeah.
I agree.
And
we'll just put a plug, if you're in any of those situations, the best course is to get out and seek help.
And just to let you know too, if you are going through domestic violence, there is help out there. Please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or 1-800-787-3224. Do not stay in a relationship where there's domestic violence. It will not get better. It will only get worse. Please love yourself first.
Amen to that.
All right. So number 7, opposing values or morals. Now, this is the thing. How are you going to marry somebody with opposing values and morals? That makes absolutely no sense.
Well, there's some people where they come into the relationship with different values and morals, thinking that they can change. The person will change. They can do something different with their, they will change, and it doesn't always happen that way. And so then, they divorce, but they come in thinking that, you could potentially change.
All right. So my wife had to take my son back upstairs because he came down and interrupted us. But exactly just kind of piggybacking on what my wife was saying about maybe, and I think this is more with women towards men. I don't think it's with men towards women, which I could be totally wrong about that. But women think that they can change a man. That's almost damn near impossible, unless a man want to be changed. Now, it's a possibility that if you want to marry a guy, he has a drug addiction, right? Well, if he comes to you and expresses the desire to change, that's a possibility you can help him out through that, right? But more than likely, if a man is not doing that, he's not going to change. So if you have opposing values and opposing morals, shit, if you even have opposing religions, you're not going to come to the same place just because you got married. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah. It can be tough. And it definitely can lead to grounds to divorce. Yeah. We don't have that problem.
We don't have that problem. So let's go to number 8. Oh, now this is some good one right here. Addiction. Alcohol, drugs, gambling, or sex.
That can definitely lead to a divorce.
Definitely.
All of those things. Some of them could probably be worked out with, group therapy or help, especially addiction or drug, sex. I'm not sure how
Well, they got infidelity at that point. If
Okay,
you're addicted
yeah,
to sex, or I mean, because if your wife, if you think your significant other's
going
not
to
giving,
thropples and stuff.
well, yeah, if you're not giving you enough, more than likely that's going to lead to infidelity,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
The one that really concerns me is not the gambling, it's not the drugs, it's really the alcohol.
Mm.
I think alcohol is probably the most addictive substance in America,
Yeah.
and it's
Everybody
so
uses alcohol
well,
to
yeah, it
numb
is,
something.
and it's celebrated, and it's so readily available everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't escape from it.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Parties.
Everywhere, almost
events.
every store you go to, you're gonna have alcohol.
Yeah.
Right. Um, but I do think a marriage can survive an addiction.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
But I don't really want to get deep in that because I have no idea about. I have
Yeah.
no knowledge of how that works, and
Yeah.
hopefully it's not a problem.
We don't have that problem.
We don't have that problem. I mean, I'm sipping on this Jack right now, but I do not have an alcohol problem. All right, so let's get through this a little bit quicker. So we got number 9: absence of romantic intimacy or love.
So that kind of goes back to the other one.
Yeah.
So we can move forward on that.
I mean, I do think that you think. Well, let me ask you this question: if you've been married a certain period of time, my parents has been married 41 years. You realize that?
Wow, 41.
I know. I'm 39, so they
Wow.
had me 2 years after they were married. They
And I
married
think
really
when
young.
we started dating, they were only like at 30.
No, I don't think it was that. I think it was in the 20s. Had to be.
No,
We've been
I
together
mean-
for like 13 years.
32 years at our wedding, though.
Well, that was at
Right.
the wedding. But
Yeah,
before that, though,
yeah,
remember, we've been together
yeah,
before that, so
wow.
that's a long time, right?
Yeah.
But let me ask you this question then. What if you've been married 40 years, but you don't love the other person? Well, maybe you love them, but you don't like them. But at that point,
Well,
though,
can you love them but not be in love?
that's a good question. That's why I'm asking you.
Oh, I don't know. I think
That's a damn good question.
I think you do. I think if both people, like, we kind of said before, if both people are coming to the table, communicating and working on the marriage, you can stay in love with somebody for a long time. Then again, you could just be with somebody because, as my mom has said before, in relation to some of our family members, it's cheaper to keep them.
Well, that's true. It's very cheaper to keep them. And it probably
So
applies to my parents.
I've got some
It's cheaper to keep them.
family members on my side that they may not be the best suited
Well,
together, but at this point it's cheaper to
Well,
keep
you've been in a relationship so long though that it really you can't afford separating, right?
Right.
But let me ask you this question: so, loving somebody versus being in love with somebody, two different things, right?
Yeah.
For example, when I was coming up, when I was younger, listening to rap music, I loved MC Hammer, right? To this day, Hammer is my man, but I'm not in love with his music.
Mm.
Now, flip side of that, when I was younger, I was really into Tribe Called Quest and Tupac, right? But I'm still in love with their music to this day.
Mhm.
There's a difference. One lasted, the other two lasted, the other one didn't last, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I like Hammer as a person. I wish the brother the best. There's only so many times I can listen to. You can't touch this shit. I can't listen to it that many times, right? But with a Tupac Can't Get Around, I can listen to that over and over. I would probably die with that song being played in my funeral, right?
Okay.
So there is a difference. But do you think something like that can apply to a marriage, where you could love somebody, but at a moment of time you was in love with them, but now you're not?
I think so.
But what do you do at that point?
Well, I mean, I think it's just, how you.
Are you only good at your options? Okay, so what if you've been married for 35 years? You love the significant other, but you're not in love with them, and then somebody else comes along that you fall in love with.
Well, see, I think that's trickling into some of the other ones. So at that point, you need to, you divorce. I mean, there's people that, divorce after, 30 years of marriage. Their kids are off, if they had kids, and the two separate, they've grown apart from their significant other, and then, you just divorce. But you're still friends, maybe, because there's love there. You're just
But will
not
you divorce
in love.
though? Because if you've been there together so many years, there's an investment there.
Yeah.
I know that some people, they will just say, hey, I want to divorce after 19 years. You got sunk costs into that particular significant other, but you just like, forget it. cares? I just lose it. I lose the investment. I don't see that. I can't imagine me leaving you.
Yeah, I think it goes back to though to the mindset. Like I think I've always thought about like continually to date your partner.
Yeah.
Like even if you're married, you still go out and date your partner because that's what keeps it fresh and
Let me ask you this question, Danielle. If Usher Raymond came into this house
no
and said,
no, not Usher, you gotta pick somebody else.
Like who? Denzel's kind of old. Give me
Not
somebody.
Usher.
What? Michael B.
Michael
Jordan.
B. Jordan.
So if he came into this house and said, I want you, I love you, come with me, will you come with him? Will you go with him?
You know, people probably not gonna believe me.
Yeah.
Michael B. Jordan, fine brother, but I would not, because grass is not always green on the other side. Now he got money, a lot more money than what you bring to the table. Let's just be honest.
That's true.
but I would in my mind only be jumping ship because of his money, and it wouldn't be. I would probably last maybe a few weeks and then be like, okay, I need to go back, because I don't know if we would be able to communicate and have the friendship that you and I have. I'm not gonna throw that away.
You know what? I like to hear that. That's very true. I think that made me be secure. It makes me more secure as a man. Teyana Taylor. Now, if she came into this house,
you better give me the same answer. I should have said Janet Jackson.
Oh, you know I love Janet. Right? I don't give a how old Janet is. You know I love Janet. You know what I'm saying? You know, Janet got history. You know what I'm saying? My dad fantasized about Janet. Okay. All right. Now I'm just joking with you. Okay. So number 10, one spouse not carrying their weight in the marriage.
Ooh. Now this is a big one.
This is a very big one.
You know, I come across that a lot too in the real estate world with couples.
Yeah.
Either they're not married or they are married. You know, when one person wants to put everything under their name because maybe they, you know, carry more of the finances and the credit and everything. And so it can get, it can be tough in a marriage to kind of have that balance. But I always look at it as if one person is better suited, then what is the other person uses their strengths and that kind of counteracts. I think we have that kind of good balance.
I like that logic because, okay, so carrying the weight, when you hear that, you may think economic, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe this person don't have the job that I have, or maybe he don't have a job at all.
Right.
Life happens. We all get life. Right. Adulting is hard, right?
Yep.
There could be one spouse may lose their job, the other spouse may keep their job. But I will say that if you have a spouse that lost their job, they're going to have to pick up in other areas, which means that they may have to cook a lot more. Like me. So me and you, for example, I lose my job, right? I may have to spend more time with the kids. You know, we got to take the kids out of daycare. We got to save the money. I'm cooking more.
You can't lose your job. The benefits are under you.
Well, there we go, right? But you can't lose your job too, but you got certain benefits. But it mean I got to kick in, right? Because I do have to hold my weight.
Yes.
I can't just sit on the couch and do anything.
I agree. I think that's what it would keep it. But it is. I mean, a lot of people do divorce for that, and it does cause a lot of problems. They say money is
the number one reason for divorce.
Well, and it causes a lot of problems in the marriage. So,
but I will say though, if you're going into the marriage and your spouse is not making enough money, or not the same amount of money with you, you know that right off.
Oh yeah.
So don't expect your spouse just to suddenly, after you get married, have like $100,000 a year job.
And that's what I tell friends that are dating too, because they'll date and be like, oh, you know, this person has dreams or they planning on doing this, you know, these dreams and aspirations. I'm like, if it's not happening now, it's going to forever be a dream and aspiration.
It is.
Like, or if you date somebody because they had that dream and aspiration, it doesn't come, you know, you dating them for 10 plus years, you marry and they still dreaming and had that aspiration. You should know that going in. They didn't have it when you knew that going in, it was a dream.
Well, a lot of that is a game. I mean, there's been plenty of women I told in my early 20s, like, hey, you know, I'm about to do this with this all game. Right? As a woman, though, you have to recognize that game.
Yeah, as an adult.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one. Now, there's 3 more, right? Okay. I would say 2 of the 3, well, all 3 of them don't apply to us, but 2 of the 3 is definitely not going to apply to us. But this one, the next one is financial problems and debt. That affects a lot of marriages.
Yeah, that's what you just said, the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know somebody that they were together for a specific period of time, they went to Disney World with us, with my family. And like when you go to Disney World, like in the 90s, right? Shit, it was very expensive for my family. And we couldn't afford anything. So we wanted like the food or we wanted t-shirts. We couldn't do none of that in Disney World. What we had to do was go to the gas stations outside on the highway outside of Disney World and buy clothing and buy food from there because they were cheaper. But they was getting all the clothes, all the food there because they was using their credit card. Well, once they got back home, that they weren't able to pay off that debt quickly. The debt accumulated, and they eventually filed for bankruptcy, and they kind of killed their marriage. They eventually got remarried years later, but they fell into that financial problems and debt. You know, you got to keep a close watch out for that because that can really cause a ton of stress in the marriage.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially if one party is going out spending the money and the other one is, more financially.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Mrs. Doubtfire. You remember that movie with Robert Williams?
Yeah.
Last one is a lack of shared interest and incompatibility between partners.
That's a tough one too. I mean, I had a friend. I mean, she dated a guy and was engaged, but I didn't see it. I mean, there was a lot of additional red flags, but I didn't see it lasting long. Or he had proposed and was engaged only because they didn't share any common interests. He liked to play video games and sit in the basement, and she was, wanted to date and go out and do stuff.
But did she knew that in the beginning when they was married? Before they was married?
It was very rushed, so I don't know if she took the time to really vet it out. I mean, they were dating and doing stuff, but then when they moved in together, which was quick, it became very different than I think what she thought, but she stayed. So that's where she didn't get married though. They were engaged, and then infidelity and affairs and all this other stuff came out.
Okay.
So she dodged a bullet, if you will, with that. But it could have been where she got married and then looked up a few years later and realized they didn't have the shared interest of stuff together.
But we don't have that though. We have very compatible interests.
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff. From TV shows to things we like to do.
All right. Well, that
was a fun list.
There was a fun list though. I think that a lot of that stuff really didn't apply to us. Thank God, right?
Yeah. Well, drop your comments. Let us know what you think about this episode.
And if you move into the North Virginia area, please look out for my wife. She's a realtor. Can you give your contact information?
Yeah, hit me up. It's Donyell.Allen, and that's Donyell. Another episode, more on the real estate side here. And I have an article for you because I've been running into a lot of renters lately.
Okay.
Especially because of the times we're in with the market.
So not a lot of people buying homes?
Not a lot of people buying homes. Although I always say you date the rate, marry the house. So always remember that you can, refinance. But I have some facts here for you, and just kind of, this is some of the things that I always like to bring to the forefront and the differences of like renting versus owning.
Okay.
And so when you're renting, after each rent payment, that money is gone because you're paying somebody else's mortgage. Whereas when you're owning, each payment builds your wealth and equity.
Exactly.
Another thing is that with renting, you can't make any changes to the property. Now you can ask if you could mount things on the wall, hang photos and things, but usually you can't, repaint some, you can't really change paint out like that, or you can't change, the way your kitchen looks, big construction. You own your home. You have the freedom to renovate to any kind of beautiful dream kitchen or bathroom that you want.
True.
When you rent, the rental prices can go up with the lease after renewal. So now I do have a lot of people where I advise if they plan on being in the area and they are going to just rent, to do a 2-year lease, a longer term lease, because then that locks you into that rate. Because after a year, if you say, hey, I'm going to re-sign, they could say, okay, it's going to be $50 additional. Now, if you're owning, your monthly mortgage payments, they stay about the same.
So let's slow down a little bit with that point. So if you're renting, what a lot of people don't realize, once you rent a place, you usually sign a year-long lease. But after that lease, there's more than likely the person that you're renting from is going to go up on their rent, right? Because of the market, especially right now where you got the high inflation, it costs money costs more, loans cost more, right? If that person is spending money renovating that particular place or other investment properties, they're spending additional cash that they didn't account for.
Yeah.
And then they're going to try to share some of that cost with you.
Yeah.
So they're going to go up on your rent. The part that sucks is that if you don't want to pay that, you have to go look for a new place, which is probably going to be like around, if you're talking about the same square percentage in the same city, it's going to be the same amount that your renter is trying to charge you now with the new rent, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going to save
any
money.
The cost of boxing up, moving,
exactly,
all
it's
of that additional security deposit that you have to put down and up front. So it will cost you more money in the long run. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hassle. So I would say though, I like the idea of signing an interior lease. At least you would lock in that rate though. Yeah. But so far, I mean, I kind of like the idea of buying more than renting.
Yeah.
Continue.
So when you're renting, you're paying a mortgage that's just not your own. So most people, when they list their property to rent, they're, taking into account how much their mortgage would be, and you're covering that. If they're in a condo, they're adding in whatever the condo fees may be. If they're in an HOA, they add that all into the lump sum of what the rental amount would be. So then that way, that person that's renting it, you're paying somebody's mortgage, their whole fee.
Essentially you are though.
Yeah. So then that way they don't have to worry about that payment.
But you also though, you don't have the burden of ownership. What I mean is that you can leave at any time. Say if you live in here, you live in North Virginia, you want to go to Kansas for a new job, you could separate from your residence fairly easy. You can just leave, right?
Well, you could sell it. Do the same.
Well, yeah. I mean, pretty sure. And tell you the truth too, if you have a home in this area, you could sell it fairly quickly.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
So when you're owning, obviously you're paying down your own mortgage. Again, that goes back to that building your own wealth and equality and equity. And then there's no tax advantages, which is a big one when you're renting. You get the tax advantages when you're a homeowner.
But I will say this though, as a caveat with that, right? There is tax advantages. The tax advantages were greater before the Trump administration. And I'm not getting political here. What I'm saying is that under President Trump, what he did is he increased the standard deduction, right? So back in the day, how it worked is if you are married, you get a standard deduction of maybe $12,000. Well, if you have itemized expenses and your mortgage is included in those itemized expenses along with healthcare and certain employment expenses, if that's higher than $12,000, well, then you will get that benefit that's higher than $12,000. So say the standard deduction is $12,000, and then your itemized deductions, including your mortgage and everything else, is $15,000. You can take the $15,000 deduction on your taxes, not the $12,000, right? But with Trump, what he tried to do is he basically wanted to make the taxes more simplified. So what he did is he increased the standard deduction to I believe $24,000 to $26,000. Don't quote me on the actual amount, but it's around that range. Meaning that everybody's going to get that standard deduction amount if you're married, right? But if you itemizing, you got to have enough expenses to kind of exceed that. So if you go buy a place now, you have a mortgage, there's a possibility that you may not get the same tax benefits that you would have enjoyed 5 years ago. Well, you do get it, but you get it automatically with a standard deduction. Everybody gets it, right? You're not just gonna get it because you have a home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now I will say there's a lot of homes in this area that are very expensive.
Yeah.
So you may end up paying a lot of money for your residence, and you may still have getting the benefit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is always going to change too, because you never know with another change in administration. Not to get too political, it may go back to what was once before in the market. You just never know. But
you never know. Yeah.
I always say if you're going to, make an investment, and it all depends too on the rental amount. Like if your rental amount is, especially in this area, anywhere over the 3,000 threshold, you may be able to afford a place because, your mortgage is going to be about 3,000. So why throw that money away? Now, if you're on the lower end, anywhere from 1,900 to, or 2,025, it may benefit you to rent, especially if you're a government worker, active duty, military. We have a lot of those in this area where maybe you're only here for the 2 years. Although you do get the VA benefit, so
But
that's a
it's
plus.
always good to own something, right?
It is.
And when you have a mortgage, you own a home.
Yeah.
You have a loan out for that home, but you own it, right? It always trump renting because that home is an asset,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of people get confused by that. They always say, well, how's the home an asset when you have this big mortgage on it? You don't really own a good percentage of it. Well, in accounting terms, an asset is a liability plus equity, right? Meaning you have the asset. Now, the other side of the equation is you have a liability, you have equity. When you first buy a home, you have that asset. You're on the other side, you may have a high liability and a very minute equity, right? But it's still an asset, meaning that if you sell that home at a later date and that home appreciates, you will make some money from that asset, right? It will generate income. And I would say that the great thing about living in a close proximity to DC is that the home values really remain very high, right? And they appreciate greatly, especially now because we have Amazon second headquarters is here. We have Boeing that just moved to North Virginia, and it's not counting the business that's being done in Washington D.C. and the suburbs of Maryland, right?
And you've got a lot of great things coming here too. And
Yeah.
I always tell my clients that the closer you get to DC, the more you spend, but on the property value that you're buying, or even if you're going to rent, because those are popular areas. But if you buy in that area, it becomes a great investment because
Yes.
somebody's always going to be renting. I mean, you're going to have renters. Trust me, I work with a lot of them. I understand the need to rent. I'm not knocking it. But if you had the flexibility and the financial stability to own a home, owning that property, that real estate is always going to trump renting. And I always like to let my renters know too that especially if you're a first-time home buyer, once you close, you don't have your first payment for like a month and a half out. So example being, we're in May. Say you bought a house and you were to close by the end of May. You don't make your first mortgage payment until July. So you don't make one in June. Whereas if you rent and you say that you're going to rent and move in at the end of May, you pay your security deposit, your prorated days that you have left in May, and June's rent right then and there. So you got to come up with that chunk of change, which a lot of times leads to, I mean, it's not as significant, but that could lead to a lot of money that you could almost use